Hello, and welcome to our Color Edge Creative Mastermind webinar series. So my name is Kevin Burke. I'm a business development manager here at EIZO, and I'll be your host today. We're hosting an ongoing series of these webinars featuring EIZO Color Edge power users who are also recognized leaders in their profession, including photographers, video editing and retouching professionals, people in print, TV and feature animation people, as well as visual effects and video post-production folks. The Creative Mastermind series is brought to you by EIZO, the makers of EIZO Color Edge self-calibrating color accurate monitors, which are preferred by the most discerning photographers and creative people everywhere, which includes the subject of our newest webinar, which is Daisy Gilardini. She's one of those most discerning photographers who's also a Color Edge user. Daisy is a world-class photographer specializing in the life and landscape of the Earth's polar regions. Her childhood passion for the natural world has evolved into a lifelong commitment to spread the message of conservation and the need to preserve what's left of the world's remaining wild places. Her images have been published internationally in leading magazines such as National Geographic, BBC Wildlife, Canadian Geographic, Nature's Best, among many. Since 2018, she's been a photographer in residence with Canadian Geographic. She's a member of the International League of Conservation Photographers and the Sea Legacy Collective, a fellow of the New York-based Explorers Club, and member of the Royal Canadian Geographical Society. In 2018, Daisy was nominated as Greenpeace Antarctic Ambassador, and Daisy's work fuels her passion, and I think you'll know what I mean by the time we wrap up today. We'll open it up to your questions at the end. So if you have questions while we're going, if you could please use the chat feature in the Zoom and to send us your questions. And then we'll try to get to all of them after we get going here. Hello, Daisy.
Hi.
How are you?
Yeah, thanks for having me, and welcome to everybody for this webinar. Very excited.
Sure. So, you know, after having conversations with you, preparing for this, and as well as just getting to know you over the years of being an EIZO ambassador, I've gotten to really get a good feel for that. You really love doing what you do and going where you go. So for someone who lives for working in the field and the coldest places on earth, I have a feeling it was more than luck that brought you there.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about the series of events that led you to becoming a photographer and then ultimately to what you're actually doing and have pursued up until today?
It's a long story. I hope you have a lot of time. Well, we're going to try to keep it short. Yeah, so, well, you know, I grew up in Switzerland in the middle of the farm. So I had dogs, I had cows all around me, going around barefoot in the woods. And so kind of a wild child. And so this love of animals made that everybody around me, my family, everybody, when it was a birthday or Christmas, they would just give me toys, animal stuffed toys. And when I was 4 years old, my godparents gave me this little seal pup. And my mom was telling me a story about the seals that lives above and under the water. And for me, were just amazing story, very exciting and fascinating. So I grew up with the idea that actually I wanted to become a vet, but never happened. In fact, you know, sometimes life, and quite often life doesn't go the way you think it's gonna go. And actually I became an expert in finance and accounting. But here I am today as a wildlife photographer. So life after that little parenthesis of 20 years of accounting, finally I found my way. I found the goal of my life was, yeah, being with the animals, not taking care of them medically, but actually giving them a voice and be able to do something for them in another way, just being an ambassador for nature. And that's how I actually got to become a full-time wildlife photographer, and that was the end of, well, 2006. It was a very slow transition. I had my accounting business, I did my master in accounting, and then I had to hire people helping me because I was traveling more and more often. But every time I was coming back to the office, I was feeling very, very depressed. I'm pretty sure you can imagine myself in front of a monitor, and that wasn't an EIZO monitor at the time, when I was in the accounting world, staring at numbers and wondering what the hell I'm doing here. And then finally, I started being published, I started writing. It was really like a period in my life where I had two day jobs. I would just have accounting and photography on the side. And then finally in 2006, I decided, you know, I'm gonna take 2 sabbatical years. And if I go bankrupt, I had a few savings. If I go bankrupt, I'm gonna go back to accounting, and I never touched my saving ever since. So I'm not making as much money as I did, but it's just a choice. It's just a lifestyle, and it's really giving a new purpose to your life. And I think it's so important in life to find basically what were you born for. And for me was, yeah, I think it's, you know, when you find your talent, I think it's really your obligation to follow it. And because talent is something that we're gifted, and it would be a total waste not to take advantage of it. And so I say, yeah, I'm gonna try, and I did it, and I'm super happy about that.
Wow. I imagine leading up to that, you know, that 20 years doing accounting, you probably worked pretty hard to get yourself to the point where you were able to walk away. So you knew you had to put in the extra hours and the extra effort to do that, to get you to the point where you go, okay, bye-bye.
Absolutely. And it was really a painful transition, because my heart would be always in the photography and with the animals in the wilderness. And then at the end, I would come back and be very depressed. And then finally you have the guts to say, okay, I'm gonna do it. And it worked out. So this image is actually a very symbolic image for me. It's a heart-shaped iceberg, actually. And I shot this one during my very, very first trip to Antarctica in 1997. So a long time has passed through. But I think it's very symbolic because it really represents my love for the polar region. And I always say that, you know, during the first trip to Antarctica, I left a piece of my heart down there. And now every year I have to go back and check on that. In fact, every year I go back to Antarctica, and every year it's like I have to go back and see where is my heart at, and, you know, take care of my heart, and because my heart is really down there.
Have you ever found another shot like that since the first time you went?
No, I think that's once in a lifetime shot.
It's an unbelievable shot to find the first time you go to a place that you've been going to many, many times since then, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's a sign. It's a big sign.
Yeah. So I have a question. As an advocate for conservation and habitat protection, how do you use your photography to make a difference?
Well, it's very important for me expanding photography, if you want, not just to the beauty of the image. I mean, the beauty will save the world, as Dostoevsky said, but it's really about having a strong message that goes with your images. So my images have been used with the most biggest, if you want, organization, non-profit organization like WWF or Greenpeace and BBC and National Geographic. And for me, all of this is not about myself and be exposed. It's about exposing the voice of these creatures. And so through talks, through books, through magazines, it's giving the voice to them. And so that's what I do. That's what my purpose. I'm a member of the International League of Conservation Photographer, and through ethical photography, we really aim to give a voice to species and places that are at risk, and that's really our goal.
Let's talk a little bit about actually being in the field. So now that you've been to the polar regions more than 80 times, you probably had that planning down to a science, I'm guessing. So a trip to Antarctica for pretty much anybody on this call, most likely, would be a major planning effort. Just to go visit there, even as a tourist. So what are the important items on your checklist for a photography trip?
Well, for sure, I do not travel light. Photographers do not travel light. So nowadays, to be a still photographer, actually, you have to be much more than a photographer. You have to be a drone pilot, for example. You have to be able to do underwater photography. You have to be able to write. You have to be a journalist. You have to be a cameraman. Now you need video that goes with your images. A lot of people want the behind the scene. They're really curious about what's behind. And really, to be complete, you have to be all of that. If not, it's really challenging to make a living out of it. You must be really polyvalent and be a little bit of everything. You must be a social media expert. You must be a software expert. It's really a profession that learning never ends. If you stop learning, you're really dead. I mean, because with all the technology, all the new software and everything, you always study something new. You're always trying something new. You're always trying new things that works. You have to come up with innovative images in order to be successful. And technology, like this image was shot with a drone, it is really it's amazing how fast it goes. And how much more potential. If I'm looking back at the beginning of my career, there were images that I could not even think to be able to shoot. Right now, technology really allows me to do things that I wasn't able to before. So that is great. That is really great. But going to Antarctica really is not a big deal. I mean, it's expensive. That's the main thing. The first time I went to Antarctica, I actually had to save my money for 7 years. But then it's really, it's pretty well organized. You cannot go by yourself as independent unless you're really, really rich. You can go, I'm leading tours on sailboats or bigger boats, but everything is already organized. So as a tourist, it's not that difficult at all. When it comes to the Arctic, as you see this image here, the Arctic in winter, that is really challenging. We coping here with temperature of -40. Here is the typical outfit when I'm photographing polar bears. Especially polar bears coming out of the den with the cubs. And that's the outfit. So you can see he's totally, I mean, you're like a little mountain of clothing, basically. It's very hard to move. It's really hard on the equipment.
I noticed you not trying to blend in with your red parka.
No, you want the polar bears to know you're there. Quite often people, well, depending what you're shooting, but I really usually like the animals to know I'm there, because I don't want, especially I do a lot of bear photography, and the last thing you want is spook a bear, because that's when accident happens. If the bear is actually black bears, grizzly bear, if they know you're there, they probably try to avoid you. They totally don't want to interact with other humans, and actually they really don't want to interact by themselves as well, so they try to avoid each other. So I really try to make myself that they can hear me and also they can see me. So, and that's the best, because once, my philosophy, if you want, when I'm in the field, I try to blend in with the environment, be present, let the animals, I'm there, let the animals know I'm not a danger, I'm not gonna steal your food, I'm just here, and I'm gonna just do really weird noises when you can get close to me because I'm clicking. So that's the only thing they know is, oh, this lady really makes strange noises when I get close, but it's just because I'm taking picture. But other than that, I really let them decide the terms of the game. Like if they want to approach, they approach. I'm not chasing the animals, because if you chase the animal, you're gonna end up with a lot of butt images, which won't show you the behavior they usually have. So the best thing is to sit down quiet and let them come to you.
So how do you learn about the places where you find the animals that you're planning to photograph?
Well, most of it is documentary, or magazine or by now I really know well. And because I'm specialized, I know exactly where bears are visible and where you can actually, there is the highest concentration, so you get good chances to photograph them. And it's just a question of research. Nowadays, with documentary, internet, there is good camaraderie between us photographers and cameramen, where we share information, where is the best location, what's the best time to go, and stuff like that. So it is a lot of information right now. I mean, we are in the digital era where everything is in the internet. So it's much easier than before internet.
Okay. Well, here's something I bet you can't do digitally. How do you get around when you're in the color region?
Well, then it's logistically, it is more difficult. I've been skiing to the North Pole twice, just ski the last degree. So some of it is just by pulling your sledge. You are actually the dog pulling the sledge. No dogs upstairs. Or by sailboats, now in the Arctic and Antarctica, which it's a means of transportation with absolutely love. And because you can really be close to the water and you can be silent, you can go places with shallow water where bigger ship cannot go. But then, you know, it all depends. My body of work really divides in between guiding tours and actually doing private assignments. So those are totally different things. I do workshops on sailboat with very, very small group, like only 5 people, or I can go by myself and just hire a guide. I always have a guide with me, you know, like especially in bear country. I mean, bears are not really that dangerous. And when we're talking about black bears and grizzly bear, they're not hunters. They don't want interaction, but I still want a guide with me because I'm focused on shooting, and I want someone to watch my back because they're still wild animals. So you want to be sure. And also there is nothing like a guide that has the knowledge of the place as the knowledge of the single bears. That is super important, that, you know, some bears are more spooky than others. Some bears you can approach more, or you can let them approach more. Some bear you just say, no, you stay away from me. So and that knowledge is really priceless. So I'm never in the field totally by myself. I always have someone that watch my back, especially because I'm a wildlife photographer. I'm not really a landscape photographer. And the places I go, usually it's polar bears or grizzly bear or black bear. So I trust them better than, let's say, cats. I don't trust cats. Like if I go walk in the mountains here in British Columbia, I watch my back because I really do not trust mountain lions because they're gonna attack from the back. While a bear is really exceptional, that is gonna attack you from the back. And actually they're really, really, really easy to read, bears. They'll let you know. They totally let you know if you're crossing the boundaries. They're gonna start having the ears back a little bit, and then they start flapping their mouth. Then you know you're in trouble. And also grizzly bear and black bears, let's say I had a couple of close encounters that were not happy with me, and they will simply just, you know, jump on me, but just fake do a bluff charge, and then they stop. As soon as you say stop, they stop. They're very, very obedient. So the first time they probably stop, and I never add a second charge. And I've been charged really once in 30 years that I'm doing it. So they're really, really gentle souls, really.
So when they decide they don't want you around, and you notice that, you generally leave the area away from their.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, the most important thing in wildlife photography is respect the animals. And so if they clear in letting you know, nope, you're not welcome, then I back off. There's no way you're gonna get any good images from your subject being upset with you. And I really don't like to have those images of, you know, growling bears, or, you know, like in the Arctic and Antarctica, maybe terns are well known to dive bomb, and they're really nasty. They're really small birds, they're beautiful white little birds, but they tend to dive bomb. And that's when the dive bomb views, because you're close to the nest. And some people really like to have these really upset images. But to me, it's like, okay, this is totally wrong. So when I see an image of an upset animal, I get upset as well, because I say, okay, something's really wrong is going on here. Mm-hmm. If it's been like interaction with bears, then it's fine. But if you see the bears looking at you and just growling at the camera, well, either you have a bear on the back and you're really in troubles because you are in between two bears that are having a fight, or it's totally not right. And I think it's not ethical at all.
Okay. I'm wondering, we see a lot of, you have a lot of animals, seals and bears and all kinds of animals, but you also do some great landscape photography as well. And I'm wondering, do you plan for both of those, like on separate trips, or are you just finding landscape opportunities on your trips to go and take photographs of animals?
Yeah, no, I never plan a trip just for landscape. The landscape I take is just opportunistic. Of course, wildlife in remote areas are always in amazing locations. So it would be really not good to not take advantage of it. So, but it's a totally different game. Landscape photography, I'm really an opportunistic landscape. Like this image was shot in Wapu's National Park in Manitoba, Canada. And that is during the day, we're after polar bear cubs. And at night, usually we have, if it's clear, we have these amazing northern lights. And of course, you are out until like, 2, 3 in the morning, just shooting the lights. And then you sleep a few hours and then you back on this tundra. They're like van with snow tires, and you go, there's no tracks, and then you go in the tundra the whole day. So for me, it's really just an opportunity, and I take it whenever. I love it, but I'm too focused in wildlife. And luckily enough for me, the message usually, if a species is in danger, the habitat is in danger, because usually what happens is loss of habitat. This image was shot in Antarctica, and again, here is on the sailboat. And I mean, I know the places. I mean, it's more than 20 years that I'm going down to Antarctica every year. So I perfectly know where there is congregation of icebergs. And so I try to plan my daily activities to be able to be at sunset or sunrises in places where I know there is good opportunity for landscape as well.
Well, I mean, those subjects that you get to take pictures of, whether it's the animals or the landscapes, is so awesome. So you had a trip right before the COVID shutdowns happened in March, where you went to Wapusk National Park. Could you tell us a little bit about that trip?
Yeah, so Wapusk National Park is in Manitoba, Canada, and it's the southernmost denning area for polar bears. And I go there almost every year. I'm addicted. You can see here that the little guys over there. Once you see them for the first time, you really are addicted. You want to go back and back again because they're so adorable. And I don't know if Matt can show the video of the little guys. So what happened in Wapusk, we go out in snow, this van with track, and we're looking for dens. So here's a bear den, and you can see after a few days, Mama get used to the presence of the van. She has to come out and clean first thing. As you can see here, she's really dirty. She was in her den. Sometimes it's no den, so they're really nice and clean, but sometimes they come out really, really dirty. And they need to clean because their fur needs to be permeable to water, so they need a clean fur for that. It's super, super adorable and cute mom house. They play with the babies. And that was shot actually last year. And it was just amazing because for the first time I saw actually mom leaving the den with the cubs. And the cubs are a little bit confused because they're like, okay, we were here for, when they come out the first time, they stay around, they hang around the den for a few days. They need to get used to the cold. They've been in the den, and the den is pretty tight. There's just space for the mama and the cubs to turn around, but there's no place to play. And when they come out of the den, they discover the snow. They discover it's much colder, and we're talking really cold, -40 Fahrenheit and more. So it's really, really challenging. And these babies, they're so cute. So this is an image shot this year, and it's totally addictive. And for me, what really, one of the main hope I get, and the feeling of hope, is just seeing the bears coming out of the den for the first time. And that's the most amazing thing I ever witnessed, and I think I ever will witness, because it's pretty special, and very, very few people actually can witness that. So very, very special location for me, Wapos National Park. Looking forward to go back in February. We don't know yet if they're gonna allow people up there. Can you imagine, in the whole summer due to the pandemic, all the Canadian Arctic was actually shut down. Oh, wow. No tourists whatsoever.
Did not know that. Wow.
Yeah.
There's hardly anybody even up there. That's the thing. That's the crazy part. It's like you go up there and be completely socially distant from everybody, but hey, I guess they have their reasons, right?
Well, you know, they don't have the facility to be able to cope with it if it strike, and in the community they don't have that many doctors, they don't have that many ventilator, so they really have to protect themselves. I mean, it's really, the whole Arctic was totally shut down. It was supposed to be during the summer, I was supposed to be in Svalbard in Norway. Norway is open midsummer for Norwegians, that's it. And then well, a few Scandinavian countries, in Europe, a few countries, but like really very few. Russia's closed. I think they open now to some European country. I was supposed to go to the North Pole, going through Russia. Everything has been canceled, unfortunately. It's gonna be good for this region because they have a little bit of rest. But, and it's good for the environment because of not so many flights around, and, you know, even if it's, you know, scientists say it's not that much, it's still better than nothing, I think.
How about when you go to Antarctica, is that something you do in the Northern Hemisphere's summer or winter?
Yeah, so when I go to Antarctica is November here in North America, usually October, November. The season goes from October, very early season, to late season March. And while in the Arctic, I go mostly, well, year round I can go, because polar bears are in November, well, there is 2 seasons for polar bears in the north. November in Wapos National Park is where there's the highest concentration of polar bears in the world, because they're waiting for the Hudson Bay to freeze, and then they can go hunt the seals. And then the other season is when the baby are born, which is February, March, when they come out. They're born in October and then come out a few months later. But then I go to the Arctic also in April, March and April. I usually do the Norwegian Arctic, the Svalbard, and then in the summer as well, I do the Canadian Arctic and the Norwegian Arctic. Antarctica usually is, right now on sailboat, is more accessible in January. So I've been going down every January for the last few years for the full month on small vessels, sailboats usually 5, and then small yachts 12 passenger. Yeah.
Let's switch gears a little bit on you. Talk about a little bit about technology. We've seen some content, whether it's video or still images of stuff you've done with drones, and I'm wondering, how does that affect the subjects that you're capturing when you use a drone? Does it make any difference for that?
Well, the drone is a very, very controversial topic. Some people just hate drones, and it's understandable. They're noisy. The new ones are less noisy, but they, you know, and they have this really bad reputation just because, if you want, some stupidity from some people using them not in an ethical way. So I'm very, very strict, and as I said before, for me is the welfare of the animal first. So if I see the animal I'm shooting with a drone is upset, I'm out of there. And some are totally fine. Seals don't care at all. I mean, you can over on a seal, and right in front of the nose, if she sleeps, she's just gonna open the eyes, look at you, and then go back to sleep. And that's really depending on what kind of predator these animals has, right? Like if we think, well, seals do not have predator coming from the sky. So whatever comes from the sky, they know is not a danger. So they're fine. It's just a little bit of noise, but they don't seem really to be bothered by the noise, really. They really do not care. Walruses don't care at all. They just totally. Polar bears, I never really had the opportunity to fly on a polar bears, but in one occasion, a colleague of mine, we spotted one, he had the drone in the air, went to check him out, and as soon as the drone approached, like not even going low, it was up to 100 meters, he started looking up, and so we were out of there. But I've seen footage of bears, polar bears that don't even look up, they're just totally fine. I've seen usage of drones on black bears. Some care, some don't care. So it's totally personal, depending on the bear and depending where you're shooting. If you're shooting like a black bear when he's fishing and you are in a river that is a lot of noise, he won't even notice. And they don't have predators from the sky. In Antarctica, we're pretty much not allowed to fly on wildlife. Whatever you do is not on top of wildlife. If you're shooting wildlife, you must be on the water and shooting on a different angle, not from up above. But like the shot I showed before of the penguins, that was shot in the Falkland Islands. And you really have to be respectful of the regulation. You must have a drone license. Like for Falkland Island in South Georgia, have to ask permits from the UK and permit from the local authorities from the Falkland Islands and from South Georgia. Local government have approval, and that's kind of a long process. A lot of paperwork goes into it.
Probably would deter many people from doing it.
That's the main reason, and you need insurance, you need a drone pilot, you need a drone, licensed pilot, and then you need also a certain number of hours of flight, which is totally understandable. You do not want your drone to go down like in a place like this image in Antarctica and pollute Antarctica. That's the least of the thing we want to do. We have to have floating devices on the drone to fly there. And so it is strictly regulated, which is right. I really agree with that because too many people fly unethically. So for me, it's really respect the regulation, respect the altitude, respect the wildlife. I mean, wildlife is especially susceptible. Like the penguins, depending where they are, if I were to fly, which I never did, but if you were to fly on the colony, they're probably much more aware than if you are like here on a white beach. On a white beach, they do not have any predators coming from the sky. In a colony where they nest, they have chicks, and now you have skuas coming in and other predators coming from the air. So they will totally freak out if they see a drone coming down. Here, they didn't even look up when I was filming them because they're totally safe. They know they don't have any danger coming from the air, so they're fine. So it's really about always respecting the wildlife and also the people that are around you, because you are in wilderness areas and you don't want to have a drone continuously buzzing in your ear.
Yeah, no, you don't. Definitely.
No, it's very annoying, and I'm the first one admitting that is annoying. So if I am on a boat with other people, what I simply do is I take off and go. So I take off and go up 50 meters. When you're up 50 meters, really, unless it's really windy, and you usually don't fly when it's really windy, then it's pretty silent. And then I try to do my work far away from my guests or from the people that are coming with me. But see, images like this one, how can I give a sense of scale of this humongous iceberg if I didn't have a drone and if I hadn't a little, sailboat? It's impossible. You'll never know how big our iceberg if you wouldn't have that technology that really allow you to do that. So I think it's a great thing. And by the way, they're very, very green, if you want, compared to helicopters. The impact is so little if we compare it to the fuel and the noise of an helicopter. So nowadays we can really, really do and capture things that before were only possible by plane or helicopter with a huge impact, huge carbon footprint. Right now, we just have a little machine that stays in my hands, just tiny things and amazing quality, and I can do stuff like that. And drones also not only photography, but like in firefighting or in rescue or in deliveries, medical stuff. They're just amazing tools.
Yeah.
So it's really, we have to talk about drones because as much as annoying they can be, they are amazing machines. And actually, I really, really enjoy flying because like an image like this one, bubble netting whales, it would be impossible for me to capture unless I was on an helicopter. So it's pretty amazing what you can do with them.
Right. So there's some tools and technologies and skills that you've needed to add to your kind of bag for just maintaining what you do in terms of whether it's a technology or a skill that's helped you in the field, or potentially marketing yourself and your and what you do, or even post-production for when you're not in the field and when you're not marketing yourself. There's probably some technologies that have helped you do a better job once you get back, so you don't have to spend so much time.
I think
tell us about your favorite technologies.
Yeah, well, being in the field and doing what I do in the polar region, I really need the top end of everything, all the equipment. For me, there is no compromise. I'm away. I cannot get anything fixed. And the expenses of this expedition or this trip is really huge. So I need to always have the top equipment in the field, but also when I come home, because when I come home, and I travel between 6 to 9 months a year, when I come home, I want to really be as fast as possible with my post-production. I don't like to be on computer a lot, but I have to, unfortunately. But if I do it, I want to be on the best monitor possible. And in this case, and is since the beginning of my career, I always use EIZO. And for me, it's a question of quality in the details, in the color accuracy and consistency that is priceless. I need to see what I got in the field, and I always try to optimize and have the best possible file, but I'm shooting raw files. So I'm a purist. I don't like to manipulate my images. I don't like to do much. If I have to spend more than 3 minutes per image, for me is a not worth it image. And I know colleagues love to work on images and do and create. For me, it's a form of art, manipulation, if it's done really nice, but needs to be captioned as so. But for me, I'm a purist. So the less I do on the image, the better. And so that's why it's really important for me to have the closest to the reality I can have. And I achieve that by using EIZO monitor because their fidelity to the real colors. And colors are really subjective, depending on the mood you are, you can interpret colors in a different way. And that's why I need a monitor that always spot on. And, I cannot, being a professional, I cannot really allow myself to send out an image to an editor that is the colors off.
Right.
And I know in the industry, they're gonna work with a calibrated monitor. So what I see is what they see. So it's a win-win, and save me a lot of time, save me a lot of help for my eyes, and yeah. So whatever I use, either on the field or at home, for me, it has to be top. because I don't have time to lose.
Because you always get to see the same thing no matter what. When you turn that monitor on, it's always going to be the same as the last time when you left 6 months ago.
Exactly. And the fact that it's a self-calibrated monitor, I don't have to think about it. He does it. I can forget things, and I tell you, technology, it's a pain in the ass for us because it's always something new to learn, and new software, and new this and that. And so if there's something that the machine can do by myself, they can self-calibrate by itself, great. I save time and I don't have to worry. So it's really a win-win.
Well, thanks for the endorsement. I appreciate that. It's a great moment to switch over from my questions to some questions that are coming in from the audience. Would you mind answering a few questions?
Absolutely.
Okay. So let's see. First question, how long do you normally take before shooting after you acknowledge your presence in the field? Like when you're out there and, you make, you come across an animal and it knows you're there and it's there. How long before you start?
That's a really great question. I really take some times before actually taking my camera out and start shooting. For me is, first of all, getting used to the place, know the place, see where the light comes from, what would be the best angle, get the animals, of course, used to me so that they feel comfortable with me. So, and that is achieved by not moving too much around. Just, if you move slow, talk slow if you're not alone. And so usually it's very important to me to feel the place. And really it's important to let the land talk to me. And then when we have that connection, then the magic happens. And then everything goes, if you want, go to technology and through my eyes, through the lens and through my spirits, and then comes. And I think really it's just about being passionate about what you do. And then the passion you put is gonna show in your images. But everything needs to be in harmony before you start shooting, because you're gonna be noisy. Unfortunately, mirrorless camera now are really good because they don't do much noise. But I'm still with DSLR, and they still click their way out, and they're kind of noisy and intrusive. So you have to let your subject get used to it.
Okay. Here's another one relating to equipment. How do you deal with lens condensation, if any, while outside of your tent while shooting?
Yeah.
Putting the lens in a plastic bag to equalize temperature before being in a warm building.
So if I'm talking really extreme situation, and I'm thinking what puts National Park, so -40 Celsius or Fahrenheit is more or less the same. Actually, I have shot at -60 Fahrenheit. So it is essential to take care of your equipment. So first of all, you have to take care of yourself, because if you don't function and if you're cold, you're not going to be able to take the shot and focus on the job. But really, the equipment. So condensation happens when from the cold environment you get to the warm environment. So basically, after the day shooting the bears, when I come back to the lodge, there is roughly at least 50 to 60 Fahrenheit or Celsius difference between outside and inside the lodge. The lodge can be really, really hot, unfortunately. So I actually put all my equipment in plastic bag, literally really robust trash bags, close it, put it in my backpack, and leave it there under my bed, which is good temperature, kind of coolish under the bed. And I do not open it until the next day. And by, if you think 12 hours, 14 hours, it is getting good temperature. Of course, before getting into the lodge, I take the batteries out and I take the cards out. But let's say then there is northern light going on. Well, if I want to use the same body, then I have to take all my bag outside in the cold, take the camera outside, put the wide angle lens, and then reclose the big lens and put it back in the lodge. So everything has to be in plastic bags when you go in the work. If we're thinking Antarctica, very rarely is that cold. I mean, temperature average between, I don't really know in Fahrenheit here, but between -5 and +5. So it's really around freezing point, especially in January when I go, it's really not that cold. I mean, it's probably colder in Toronto.
Wow. Okay, another one regarding equipment.
Yep.
What telephoto lens do you use most with your camera? And what percentage of the shots that we see in your movies or stills are cropped for final viewing?
Yeah. So my most used lens when I'm shooting bears, and that could be polar bears, grizzly bear, and black bears, it's my 800 millimeter lens. And sometimes I use the 1.25 teleconverter. I'm not a big fan of teleconverter. I only use it on prime lens. I never use a teleconverter on a zoom lens ever. You lose too much sharpness and quality. If not, in Antarctica or Africa, my go lens is the 80-400, which is a very, very flexible lens. Is lighter, I can handle, it gives me more flexibility, and I really love that lens. Yeah.
Here's one not related to equipment.
Yeah.
I like the idea of finding the voice of your subject. How has finding your voice changed over the past years?
That's a very interesting question. I think that at the beginning of my career, I didn't have a voice, and you know, it takes time to find your voice, and I think your voice comes when you find your passion. I think, like, you know, how many penguins and polar bears images are out there, and why some are more successful than others. And for me, I think it's because of the love of your subject that you have for your subject. And so the patient, consequently, you're gonna have there to really be attentive to that split second, that, you know, that expression in the eyes, that expression on the face, that you're gonna nail it, and you're gonna be different because you just captured the soul of the image of the animal. And I think then when you find really what you love, then you're gonna create your style, because you're gonna shoot that subject over and over, and then it's only by shooting your subject so many times that you're gonna find things that, oh, I like that light, and you're gonna be much more successful because you know when the light is gonna happen. Photography is all about light, and then be ready, because unfortunately, we cannot tell our bears what to do, or our penguins, they do whatever they want. So you have to be ready and try to anticipate behaviors and anticipate the light and position yourself in the right spot. That's really, I think, the key. And then the style is gonna come, your voice is gonna come like that.
Yeah, great. Here's another one. Can you comment on whether you use flash versus natural light? And maybe provide an example or two?
Yeah, so I really, really rarely use flash. One reason is technology again. I've seen images shot with flash that you don't even know it's shot with flash, and it's an art form. Flash photography is really an art form. You really need to know what you're doing. Some animals are more sensitive to flash, and some are totally not care about it. So again, for me is, if I see that if I see the possibility, oh, I really need an extra boost of flash, will I really interfere with the animal? Would that bother him? If I see there is no reaction, then I'm fine. I'm gonna go for it. But really, I would say maybe 1% of my shoot is done with fill-in flash. And recently, in November last year, I did Costa Rica, which was something totally out of my comfort zone.
I saw that green frog and I was like, where'd this green frog come from?
Exactly. And I did it because I love frogs, but I really cannot stand humidity and heat. So it was miserable for 2 weeks. And it's challenging. It's extremely challenging because you need flesh for everything. So actually before going, I had a one-on-one full day session with a colleague of mine that does teach shoot all the time, and I learned all I could. And did I enjoy it? Not really. I mean, I love the frogs, but it's far too much work and far too much displacement of the animals. And I mean, they don't seem stressed about the flesh, but who knows? It's difficult to read a frog. I can read a bear much better. But sometimes, like, I have a few examples, like in the Falkland Islands, like in Antarctica is not allowed to use flesh, and South Georgia is not allowed to use flesh, but in the Falkland Islands, some of the owner of the island said, yes, you can use flesh. And actually, penguins' chicks are really attracted by flesh. They just come to you. They're just like, oh, what's that? Let's go check it out. They don't seem disturbed at all. So it's like, I don't say no, like a principle. It's like you really, as everything, you have to be aware of your environment, be aware of the subject, and be respectful of your subject.
Okay. Another equipment one. For your tripod head, do you exclusively use gimbals for telephoto work? And if so, which one?
Yeah, so I'm a GITS ambassador. I use GITS's heads. They have amazing gimbal head. When I'm using the 800, yes, I use the gimbal. If not, I have a ball head. It's a GITS ball head. And for smaller stuff, wide angle, I don't use the gimbal. I use the ball head.
How hard is it to read an animal's behavior? I'd like to take pictures of animals, but most of them end up being garbage. So in the end, I make a video and take the screenshot at the moment.
Yeah, we have to say video is much more forgiving than a still image. You can go away with grass in front of your subject and everything. No, it's just really about knowing your subject. So a lot of what I do is learning about my subject and learning their habits, what they do, when they do it, and so it's only about learning and continuously try and be patient. Patience and perseverance is really what you need for wildlife photography. And I can assure you, I have a lot of bad images as well. So it's just by continuously shooting that you're gonna get that image, and just be patient. Let them get used to you. And if you end up with garbage, probably because you kind of try to follow them, they have to come to you. That's, you have to shoot at their terms. If you're not welcome, you're not gonna get a good image. If you're welcome, then you're gonna get the image because they're ready to show you who they are.
Great. We're coming up to the end of our time, so I thought I would throw one more at you from us, which is, can you impart some wisdom on some of the people that might be watching this right now that would love to do what you do? What would be your number one wisdom, number one saying that you might give them?
Yeah, so I get that question quite often. And for me, whatever you do, not only photography, but in life in general, if you want to be successful, I came up with a rule that I call the rule of the 3P: passion, patience, and perseverance. So passion, whatever you shoot, if you do it with passion, it's going to shine through your images. Patient, well, with the animals, you don't have choice. You have to be patient. And perseverance, well, if you're patient enough and perseverant enough, you're going to get the image.
Excellent. Excellent. Love that. As a former marketing person, I always think of the 4 Ps. So as a marketing person, you take those 4 Ps and then add those 3 more Ps and you could really be good.
It's all about P.
Well, Daisy, thanks so much for joining us and imparting your wisdom upon us and showing us what it's like to go out there and do what you do and you found your passion and that you're using it for good. Hopefully everybody that's watching got a feel for that, but we really appreciate your time.
No, thanks for having me and giving me this opportunity to share my passion. And thanks for the support with the monitors. I really, really appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, and if anybody needs a good, color accurate, very stable monitor that people can rely on, you can walk away from 6 months and come back and looks just like it did when you left it. Think of EIZO, Color Edge monitors. And thank you very much, and have a great rest of your week, everyone.